a suspect walks up to a man in a public sidewalk. Words are exchanged. The suspect pulls a firearm. He fires. The other man, unarmed, goes down. And then somehow, in the middle of it all, the suspect shoots himself. Both men survive. Both go to the hospital. Both are listed in stable condition.
Tonight, a mother and wife is pleading for help after her husband, Joshua Fox, was shot in the stomach and shoulder outside of the Montgomery County Courthouse as donations continue to pour in on her GoFundMe page for the disabled veteran.
I heard the gunfire and looked up, and everyone in the cafes, everyone's heads turned. We're like, what's going on? What's going on?
Clarissa Greaves works in a coffee shop nearby and learned the commotion she was witnessing involved an online streamer known for using racial slurs and provoking people of color.
But only one of them is now sitting in a Tennessee jail facing attempted murder, employing a firearm during a dangerous felony, aggravated assault, and reckless endangerment with a deadly weapon.
I've seen other videos of what that man has posted. I don't agree with it whatsoever.
Now, if you watched the news yesterday, you already know what name is on the warrant. What I want to do today is something almost no one online is doing. I want to walk you through the 9 decisions, homicide unit, especially this man over here, who's been able to go ahead and work cases like this, prosecuting office, and defense attorneys are making in the 72 hours after a shooting like this occurs. Not the drama, not the commentary, just the procedure. This is the Hill of Justice. We're going to start with a timeline. And this is what we know that happened according to news reports. I'm Jerome Hill, former police officer and state investigator, and with me is former sheriff, Clayton County, Victor Hill. We're going to talk about why a self-inflicted gunshot wound on the suspect, instead of weakening the case, it gives the prosecutors basically a near airtight conviction package. We're going to go ahead and break down the interrogation that's about to happen, and we're going to go ahead and anticipate the defense playbook. If you stick with me to the end, you'll understand the case better than 90% of the reaction channels that are covering this right now. So, brother, we have an individual that is known for his provocative live streaming. And basically, he uses that as an anchor to for his fame. With that being said, he takes that live stream and really disparages individuals of color. As we go down, he basically has made his online persona that. But at the same time, that can be, used against him. We'll talk about that. The timeline. You've seen the video. And thus, it really shows the aftermath of the shooting. And thank goodness police were there. Did you make anything out of that video when you looked at it?
Mostly what I saw was the aftermath. I couldn't really, it's not like it was a video of the actual incident that I saw.
Right. So the first thing that, detectives like you, investigators like myself, when we catch, a violent felony of any case, we build a timeline. And we start from backwards, the day of the arrest, day by day, hour by hour, if we can. A case like this, where the suspect appears to just snap, almost never actually happens. There are some pre-attack indicators that we've talked about plenty of times on the show involving someone snapping. There's always a pattern of sorts. You've recognized many of those patterns. Mm-hmm. And usually starts long before the day of the incident. And this is what we know publicly about 7 days ago leading up to this. About a week before the courthouse shooting, the suspect was at a Nashville steakhouse. Now, this is a suspect who's actually in jail now for attempted murder. It was at Bob's Steak. According to public reporting, there was a disturbance, reportedly tied to a $372 unpaid bill. The restaurant had asked him to leave because he was live streaming. And at that point in time, the suspect refused. The suspect was arrested, charged with property-related offenses, and released. To the public, that's basically a nuisance charge or some arrest. But when we take a look at cases and we break them down, we build a case file after file, fact after fact. And it's the first data point on the graph that we take a look at. And it is really disinhibition. And that's where we see the escalation, because an individual who is getting arrested now for public acts and displays like this, particularly with live streaming, he's building a persona. He's building more of a personality that he's taking greater and greater risk. And to the public, that's a nuisance. We know that that's a nuisance, but he has every right to do that. And so because his online behavior is such, for the purposes of what we're talking about, I'm going to use that and frame it frame by frame. And I think that that's where we should start. Of course, as I explained, he's very provocative and very derogatory. But I think that we take a look at videos like this and the existence of months of public broadcast, confrontational content that matters for one specific reason when we're looking at cases like this. Every minute that he live streamed, that he has in his archive, guess what it is for us? Evidence. Yeah. And this is where, a person like this, he doesn't know, he, basically on the morning of the shooting, let's put it this way. We don't know, we know he had a court appearance, okay? And he was there to film the content of what he was going through. And he responds, as he naturally does, to individual. And by the way, the individual has to be of course, the victim is a minority. He just simply chose violence on that. And this is where everything's going to hang on. So, brother, you've seen people have disinhibition, and you've seen people get bolder and bolder and bolder with their criminality. Live streaming, though? I mean, what are we doing?
Well, you're right. It is a interesting phenomena that's going on. I mean, we've seen a lot of people live stream from while they're in jail. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's going on a lot in the county. They're filming themselves with knives and all type of stuff. And, it doesn't make sense, but it happens. And I mean, there are people who they actually commit crimes. I was just skimming through an article where a guy that killed somebody and took a picture of it and put it on social media, the slain body, after he killed him. I didn't get a chance to read it, but I remember thinking exactly what you're saying right now. Why would you take evidence of a crime that you did? Why would you videotape it, take a picture or whatever like that? So, we're in a new age now. And, I think a lot of people want fame. Mm-hmm. And social media is their way to fame. And, the loudest, bodacious thing that they could do to get the most views, they're willing to do. And that's the only explanation I can really give.
Right. So now the answer changes for this case, because we got a planned confrontational that's, I'm not saying premeditated, but his live stream was. And in Tennessee, when I take a look at those charges, premeditation is what separates attempted second-degree murder from first-degree murder. And that is the difference in between about 20 years. So when you hear the next few weeks what the detectives are putting out on public display, you're going to hear that. And so the next portion of that timeline is now we cut it down to what the next 8 to 10 minutes was before the shooting, and what was going on there, what precipitated the gunfire. And, do we know?
And is there any video of that at all?
And I'm sure that there could be, because this was a very public open space, and we're talking about in front of a courthouse, unless there was the tree line that blocked anything. But I really doubt it.
Let me tell you a problem that he has. Was there, when he was live streaming, was there a court proceeding that he was going to attend before this occurred?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
or just got done with, either or.
Right. So the question that we have to ask here is this. I'm not saying that, there's some weird security at a lot of places, but most courthouses, I know all the courthouses that I was responsible for security, no one can enter with a gun unless they were law enforcement. Matter of fact, there was a time you couldn't even enter as law enforcement unless you were responsible for security at that particular courthouse. And that's always been a two-edged sword because, disarming law enforcement, there's an argument against that. Then there's also an argument that you can't control the guns, or you don't know if that officer is there for a particular case he may be emotional about. Right. But the point I'm trying to make is this. If he was on his way to court or leaving court, at what point did he get a gun? Because it's not likely that if the court had security, proper security, that he could have went in a courtroom with a gun. I just doubt seriously that there's an exception at that particular courtroom. So when and how did he get this gun? Right. That meant that he either had the gun before he went inside, or he came out and went and retrieved the gun to have on him.
Sure. Right. And that is the $1 million question. And I would imagine that the physical cameras outside of the courthouse, all the exterior cameras are going to be used and pulled and build up that timeline even more. Third part of that timeline is the seconds before the draw. And this one is going to be kind of critical for him because in the self-defense claim, the moment that he tries to go ahead and say that he was in legal danger, let's go ahead and put that in. We know that it's measured by seconds, and that gets broken down horrifically on that. If the suspect can show that the 3 or 5 seconds before he drew was that the victim took some type of action, and that a reasonable person would think that would put them in imminent deadly threat. That does open the door for an affirmative defense in saying, hey, guess what? I had to go ahead and use this. But by the way, Tennessee is stand your ground. And thus, but if he can't do that, and given that the victim was unarmed, and let's just say the victim did punch him, does it rise to the level of him drawing his weapon and shooting him? Especially at a courthouse where I can see an attorney right now saying, you were at a courthouse and there were a ton of police around. Why would you do that? And you endangered everybody around you. This is going to be very hard. And I don't think that there's a doorway for.
Yeah, I totally agree. In law enforcement, there are things that, let's say there's an officer, the officer is small in stature, the guy is 300-pound beef, has more reach, whatever, and is basically killing the officer because the officer can't handle them physically. And as a last resort, they have to shoot in order to save their lives. Some type of age difference, size difference, skill difference, a person is skilled in martial arts or whatever. And there was just no way you could stop this person because if you didn't stop them, it could result in bodily injury or your death. They're stomping you or something like that. I mean, especially with multiple people and they're trying to stomp you or whatever.
Sure. And
you can't, the way to get them off may be a firearm. But if it's just one-on-one, that's going to be hard to prove. There's a lot of open-ended questions here. There's usually a lot of cameras around the courthouse, and I'm surprised that there hasn't been some type of camera footage that's been released yet. And there's always someone walking around with a phone that when they see a confrontation, they start filming it. And I'm just very surprised that there isn't any other video out there other than what I've seen online. Maybe there is, but I haven't seen it.
Sure.
Basically, I saw it's the after effect. But that right there is a tell sign right there. But usually, courthouses should have cameras 360 degrees that can film anything that's going on in that court house parking lot. That may not always be the case, but it should be.
Right. So you and I are going to walk the scene now. Okay. And we roll up, we see the 2 victims, and we'll see what's left of a shooting incident. And the first question that we have to answer is, how many shooters? Well, this is easy. This is 1. You know, is this a mutual combat situation? You know, do we have two armed parties? That's a hard question in a lot of cases. Not in this case. There's nothing mutual on that. And then you take a look at the casing patterns, you know, and the trajectory is going to be critical on this. And you might say, why would it be critical at all? It's going to tell you the proximity of the gun to the victim. It's going to go ahead and show exactly where of course the shot was. Was it a through and through shot? There's a lot that's gleaned by that, and I think that's much more valuable, and it does a lot of hefty lifting for you know, of course, for the prosecution, in sense that, you know, they can show that and that's it. For the defense, they got a lot of work to do, a lot of work to do. And this is probably, you know, one of it. What about the ejection pattern from this? You know, I've seen that where, you know, a semi-automatic pistol, let's just say that, ejects, and then you got the spent brass just right there. It's slightly behind the shooter. And you're talking about, is it close combat? And I want you to explain a little bit about that, where, you know, if he was to say that this was let's just say he, you know, the cameras really don't show much, and he's, let's say, a tree line, which I really doubt, obscured the scene. And he said, no, the fight was brought to me. How does those forensics show people a different story?
Well, first, let's play devil's advocate. Okay. So both of them are shot. Okay. So unless it's a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
It was.
And he decided he wanted, do we know that for a fact?
We know that for a fact. He shoots the guy and he shoots himself.
Okay. Let's play devil's advocate for a second. Let's say they're both struggling over the gun. Mm-hmm. So while they're fighting over the gun, two people fighting over a gun in order to point it at each other, and during that struggle, they both get shot. Mm-hmm. So think about it. Look at it from a law enforcement perspective. Every incident involving a law enforcement weapon involves a gun because the officer has one. And there was a time, I don't know if this changed now because so many people have guns now, but there was a time when most officers were killed with their own gun. Mm-hmm. The suspect would either take the gun from them or the officer would try to pull the weapon and they would end up struggling over the weapon and something would happen that particular way. So anytime you're in a confrontation, that's what a lot of people don't understand about having a gun. If you got a gun and you're the only one with a gun, that gives you an advantage, especially if they're at a distance. But if how you carry that gun, if it's easy for a person to snatch it from you or you got a loose holster or y'all together struggling over the gun, that could be a possibility of how both of them got shot.
Correct.
And of course, you know, the media is only going to play it as sensational as they can.
Right, right. But geometry matters. And more than what you're talking about is if you do have a weapon and let's just say the contact wound and the GSR is really close on the suspect. Why were you so close to him? Why are you having a confrontation and trying to pull out your gun at that time? We know that that's a distance weapon, right?
It is, but let's say hypothetically that the suspect came up on him. So now they're close, right?
Right.
So now they're close, and now he's trying to draw the gun, and as he trying to draw the gun, they end up struggling over the gun, and they end up both getting shot.
Mm-hmm. Right. This is by the way, a disabled veteran.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. With health problems.
Right.
Okay. Not to say you can't get hurt by one.
Right. How disabled, though?
You know,
when we say disabled, do we know what disabled is? Is it disabled mentally? Is he in a wheelchair or what, you know?
It could mean all those things. So that's still left for
that's right. So there's a lot of unknowns there.
Right. So
you can get disability from the military and all your limbs and everything is working fine. It could be. So, you know, when people use that word disabled veteran, you know, usually we're thinking, okay, well, he's an amputee or something like that, but maybe not. We don't have those facts yet.
Right. So, he allegedly shoots himself in the arm. And we've seen it where officers have shot themselves doing a Glock and just shooting their legs and a whole bunch of stuff. It's just been, kind of tragic.
Now, how do you shoot yourself in the arm? Because, okay, first of all, you're not going to shoot yourself in the arm with the hand that the gun is in.
Correct.
So what, the only way to do that is reach around and shoot this hand, or you're struggling with somebody, and as a result of struggling, when the weapon, you could be struggling
almost
with
answered your own question on it.
Exactly. Your hand is in front of the weapon, and you're trying to shoot that person, and you end up shooting yourself and the particular person.
Right.
We've seen that happen a lot of times.
Right. So that is part of the geometry and also the forensic that needs to be told on that. That was this a one single shot that went through the arm and went into the suspect, or went into the victim, the alleged victim at this point in time. If it's not, then we can safely say that he probably didn't shoot his arm first. He would have had to shoot it afterwards. And we saw the video. We saw the police officers rush in afterwards. And who's to say that wasn't discharged at that time as he was trying to go ahead and holster, and the cops got on top of him really quick. So we don't know that either. But it's all part of the investigation with the self-inflicted wound like that.
Yeah. The biggest problem he has is this. He has a lot of problems, but he's already unlikable because he's out there confronting people.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the headlines, disabled veteran. That's not good because people are going to think, oh, wow, poor disabled guy got shot by this guy.
Mm-hmm.
So even if it's a situation where the tables turn on him, you confronted the wrong person, and then that person starts pounding you into the ground, and now the only way you feel to live is to do something. The problem is going to be, okay, well, why the confrontation anyway? Why are you there anyway? Why were you doing what you were doing? Now, I've seen that reversed. The interesting thing about the courts are that I've learned the hard way. I've always thought, okay, well, when it goes to court, the facts will come out and that's it. But this court has very little to do with facts. Cases are very, very political. So if you're already somebody that's public enemy number one, because of bad publicity or perception or something like that, you already got the media and everything working against you there. So even if you have a legitimate point, it's not likely that it's going to get a chance to really, really be heard unless you really, truly got a judge there that doesn't care anything about that, but only cares about the facts and the law. And that's very, very rare. And, a lot of cases, what a lot of people don't understand is there are a lot of judges that don't necessarily rule on case law and procedure. They rule on how they feel. And you can have all the case law on your side you want. They will rule and articulate it in a way just because they don't want to rule for you. So this guy is at a huge disadvantage because you're already confronting people and you're already saying things. So you got a lot of people that's upset about that anyway.
Right.
And then something like this happens. It's going to be a hard hill for him to climb on this one.
Right. Let's talk about the legal architecture of this and why self-defense is probably dead on arrival on this. This is part that people really just need to understand, and it's tough for some people. The defense attorney's first instinct in any shooting case is can we run self-defense? And if the answer is yes, of course, the case becomes a battle over reasonable belief. And the juries can always become unpredictable on that. But the answer is no. The defense has to switch damage control strategies at that point in time. We're talking about mitigation. We're talking about mental health. We're talking about plea deals at that point in time. And in a case like this, it's probably going to be a no. And here's why. It's Tennessee's self-defense statute. When we took a look at that, okay, we looked at the 3 conditions you have to meet to really claim self-defense.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, it's predicated on deadly force. 1, you reasonably have to believe deadly force was immediately necessary to prevent imminent death or serious bodily injury. You got to articulate that, and you got to do that with these type of circumstances. 2, you weren't engaged in unlawful activity. I mean, you got to look at this. If it was something where you say to yourself, if you weren't engaged in any unlawful activity in front of the courthouse, you brought a gun there, right? Mm-hmm. What are you doing with a gun out there? And we talked about that. And then 3, we're talking about who, and if you weren't, let's just say he wasn't the initial aggressor. And if you, I'm talking about the victim, but if he was, you clearly got a problem. You're going to have to go ahead and think of another way of dealing with this. And this is the problem that this guy clearly has a little bit with what you were saying. And it comes down to the disparity of force. Even if he was to punch you got a problem. And you brought a gun to a fist fight. And it can work against you. And this is where we're at.
Yeah, you're right. And I think the main problem is, we've seen like we saw a situation where a older man was arguing with a young lady, and then the boyfriend comes in to stop it and pushes the elderly guy. And then the elderly guy draws his gun and shoots. And then it was a big issue there, which I believe that they cleared that as self-defense because of the size difference. So, there's not a lot of uniformity in courts. There's not a lot of, you find rulings in different courts that conflict each other. One district says this, one circuit says that. You got emotions, you got media, all that stuff goes into play. And right now, with the media on it and with the emotions of the way this guy confront people and everything like that, that's going to be hard to overcome, even if it really is self-defense.
Right, because because Tennessee has a provocation doctrine. Right. And just to let everybody know what that basically is that let's go ahead and put it this way. If you provoked the use of force against you, mm-hmm. you can't claim self-defense mm-hmm. unless you went and did that. Mm-hmm. You can't. He was upset because the individual was laughing at him and pointing at him. They can yell at you. He could have said the derogatory words right back at him and called him whatever. You can't go ahead and get so bent out of shape that you're going to go over to the guy and confront him like that to the point where you started a fight with this guy. It's just mm-hmm. not going to work. Mm-hmm. And the suspect, he's unarmed, and I just don't know how you survive that encounter. They're both lucky they're not dead because, one gets shot in the stomach, the other one gets shot in the arm. Who's to say that would have gone ahead and that bullet would have went elsewhere, femoral artery, and he bleeds out just like that. So it's just dumb. The self-defense is going to be gone, in my opinion, on this. Mm-hmm. And, and then you can't be any dumber than live streaming the dumbness that you're doing. Mm-hmm. You can't. I mean, you just might as well what you did was walk the case over to the prosecutors and say, please go ahead and put me in jail for at least 20 years. Why don't you do that? Right. Unless you plea out of that and do 10. So, you have documented evidence of what's going on. And I just don't see how this is a survivable moment for him. Let's put it that way.
It's not looking good, but let me tell you, until I see actual evidence and proof, I'm always kind of leery. I mean, okay, let's just be honest. The guy's an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's what's really his biggest problem with this right here. So he's already dealing with that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And then he puts himself in a predicament. You know, it almost reminds me of another case, and that's a whole nother story for another thing. But you put yourself in a predicament where you confront somebody, then that person starts beating you.
Mm-hmm.
Now you don't know how to fight or whatever, and now all of a sudden, and see, here's the crazy part: the courts or the prosecutor can play that part any way they like.
Mm-hmm.
If you confront a person and that person starts beating you, and you have to get them off of you, and the person that you confronted they don't like, well, then they'll go and push for self-defense. But if you're the one that they don't like for whatever reason, be it media or whatever, and even though you confronted this person and they started trying to kill you, there's two arguments to that. Okay, you confronting the person, this person tries to kill you, and then they could be like, well, he may have confronted you, but you didn't have the right to try and kill him.
Right.
Or they can do it to the other thing. Okay, well, you shouldn't have been down there confronting him and you provocated it. And it depends on the luck of the draw, who's the prosecutor and who's the judge. Because a judge can rule for or against on anything and just articulate it. You could give him all the case law and he could say, well, I don't want to rule it on that way. So he just articulates why he won't rule. He could use a case that's not even on point and rule against you.
Right.
So, it's a very thin line without being able to see what actually happened. I agree with you. It doesn't look good. It doesn't, he's out there doing some stuff he ain't got no business doing.
Right.
You're confronting people and you got a gun at the courthouse, which that doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
Right.
But if just on happenstance, this guy just snapped and started ramming his head into the courthouse wall or whatever, those facts are hard to get out because of all of the other stuff. And we've seen this happen over and over again. And then sometimes the judges who are political figures who run for their jobs, the prosecutors run for office and everything like that. If they've already been convicted in the court of public opinion, already been convicted in the media court, then they're going to go towards that way, even if there's evidence that shows that this person is innocent.
Right.
And that's the problem. You could be a bad situation and a person that we don't like this person. We don't like his attitude for whatever our personal bias is, or maybe everybody feels that way. And even if the facts are in his favor, when you look at it, there are judges reluctant to rule on the actual facts, prosecutors reluctant to do the right thing. Well, he might be who y'all don't like, and the media, y'all may want his head. But if this is the consensus, this is what we're going to do.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. He is a defense attorney's worst nightmare.
I agree.
That's what he is.
I agree.
He is the type of defendant whose own mouth is the lead witness against him. You're live streaming this whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you have put yourself in a pickle that, I mean, what do you think is going to happen?
So has anyone, before this happened, he was live streaming, correct?
I'm not quite sure if he was. It says that he was, but once again, we don't know for certain.
Well, that should be the key. Let me tell you what has me just a little reluctant to go ahead and convict him, for lack of a better term. If he was live streaming, if there's something out there that's damning evidence, the prosecutors and police don't hesitate to put that out to the public so they can see it.
Yeah.
Right. And usually when you don't see that come out anytime soon, it's either because it doesn't exist or it's such and such. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Usually, anytime something happens and it shocks the conscious or whatever like that, and it's on video, they're going to try and get that out as soon as possible. Not just to make them look good, but to make sure he's already convicted in a court of public opinion. It's like, hey, there's no sense in going to court or whatever like that. It's rare that they have that type of damning evidence and they don't give immediate release. Not to mention, if he was live streaming, somebody should have been watching.
Yeah.
And what did they see?
Well, this happened a couple of days ago. So you were say the turnaround or something like that for a server is about 3 or 4 days. That's what you're probably getting at. Yeah.
Right. It could be 3 or 4 days. But here's the thing. Usually when they live stream, correct me if I'm wrong, it's live streaming and taping at the same time, correct?
It can be, yes.
Right. So that meant that while he's live streaming, somebody was watching.
Well,
and somebody saw
no doubt.
Exactly. And have any of those folks came forward and said what they saw or anything like that?
No, but I mean, right now, he is sitting in a Tennessee jail with no bond, which tells me something.
That doesn't tell me anything.
It tells me something right there.
Listen, I've seen people put in jail with no bond, whether there's evidence for them or not. If it's something emotional, first of all, this is not a good look. You just shot a veteran. You shot yourself. You're somebody that a lot of people don't like anyway. So
that's why he would be in there with no bond?
Absolutely. Judges are political. Prosecutors are political. So anything that they think is going to be emotional, they don't want anyone to say, how did you let this guy go? Why does he have a bond? They're going to do stuff like that no matter what, especially if it's high profile.
Well, it would be high profile, but then you have to take a look at this where I can see them doing it because he's a danger to the community. Why? Let's talk about proximity. What are you doing with a gun on the courthouse lawn?
Okay, there's a whole lot of people that do craziness like that and they give them bonds. We see it all the time and they have conditions of bond. You can't have a weapon. You can't leave the house. You can't do this or you can't do that. So what I'm saying is this. If it happened the way we believed it happened, I'm with you 100%. The guy is a nutcase or whatever. What's he doing with a gun? I already said that. But it's just mighty strange to me that we haven't seen any videos. Some of the most infamous cases that you and I know of, instantly the video is playing. It kept playing over and over again. Rodney King, whatever. They start playing the tapes. They start playing whatever. And this guy is live streaming and nobody has brought a tape forth yet. I'm just saying that I would like to see everything first.
Sure.
Because I know how easy it is for people to jump to conclusions. And this is an easy one to jump to conclusions on. Because to me, it sounds crazy. First, it sounds to me like he's out there doing some stuff he shouldn't be doing,
right?
And whatever. But sometimes the most craziest things I've heard when you actually get the evidence is not what you actually think it was.
Right.
And then this is very, very emotional because you're talking about a guy making racial statements, live streaming it. So that's going to definitely be emotional for us in the African-American community or whatever like that. So there's nothing this guy could say or do that's going to make probably 99% of African-Americans happy. But suppose there is something there. We don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm just surprised, when I was sent the video, I was expecting to actually see the incident. And all you really see is the cops running towards it. So there's a lot of unknowns.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the media, their reports are really accurate. And they'll even teach us in the police academy, 90% of incident reports, they consider incident reports hearsay anyway.
Right. So,
because incident reports are usually you just writing what a bunch of people told you. It's not until the detectives get it and can verify these statements or whatever that we don't know. So, like I said, if what we believe happened, he's done and he should be done. But in my experience, I believe very little that the media tells me, and it's even hard for me sometimes to believe the courts. after my experience. You know
I
what
would
I'm
say
saying?
that, yeah, I get that. But I would say the proximity to the courthouse. What were you doing bringing the gun to the courthouse? One, did you already have the court date? Did you go in there? If you did not, why are you going in there with a gun? Two, if you came out already and you had a confrontation with this individual, did you go back and go get it and then come back on the grounds? Because you certainly didn't have it when you went there.
Do
So
you
you got a problem.
normally carry a gun? And
Right.
then and you, because you fear for your safety and you have the right to carry a gun, and when you came out, you went and put the gun on because that's what you always do. You try not to be without your gun.
Sure.
I mean, there's two ways that can go. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to defend this guy. What I'm
Sure.
telling you is this. I do not like jumping to conclusions and with anything until I get proof or actually do it. I don't even like judging folks I've never met because the media can portray a person a particular way and you meet that person and they're not nowhere like that. I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff like that. So I need more before I can say. I can tell you this. I agree with you. It don't look good. And if what is being said is true, is not good. But there's a lot of things that don't look good, and it don't look good because we don't have all the facts.
Sure. And I think that that's a perfect way to end this. And so what we'll do is for each and every major case where we're going to take a look at this in an investigative angle for sure. And, I understand that this is going to pop off, obviously, because of who he is. We won't mention his name. We don't care to go ahead and give him additional publicity as much as we want to go ahead and just take a look at the facts and try to see where that would lead us. So if you wanted to go ahead with any cases on the next one, just drop the name and put them in the comments. I read them all. And certainly, yes.
And hopefully a video come out where we can, or some actual evidence that we can play and actually, I just feel, at least most of the time, we have at least a video.
Yeah.
And, on this one here, yeah. And I would feel better. I hope we do another show on this one once some actual footage come out or something like that, where we can really look at it and say, okay, that's a problem. Or who knows, we may say, oh, wow, I didn't know that happened. Nobody said it.
Right.
But, right now, the only video I've seen is the police running towards the scene, but we never actually saw the interaction. Yeah. And like I said, did he shoot himself in the arm on purpose, or did he get shot in the arm while they were struggling over the weapon? How did that come to be? All of those are unknowns.
Sure.
And I think we've done a show on this before. It gets real dangerous when investigators start investigating. They put a theory in their mind and they investigate it based on this don't sound right, so I'm going to investigate it this way. And you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to investigate just the facts. But that's a rare lost art now.
And that's our breakdown for this major case. So please like, subscribe, comment. We read them all. And we appreciate each and every one of you in Hell Nation. And we will see you on the next one. Talk to you soon.
All right.
This is the Hill of Justice.